sit, stay. Okay. Down, stay. Okay. Place. Sit. Down. Boy, stay. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Okay, Teddy, come. Yeah, come on. Come on. Okay. Teddy! Teddy, come! Good boy. Yes, good boy. Good job. Okay. 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 What's that about? Wanna play? No! Teddy, come! Yes! Okay, good boy. Good boy. Hi, this is Ashley from Top Dog Training and Resort. We just showed you everything Teddy's learned how to do. Now we're going to show you how to give each command properly and then correct him if he chooses not to obey. So for the on-leash commands, we're going to start with sit. So there's a hand signal as well as the verbal command sit. So the hand signal is going to be palm up towards the sky. And when we go to give him a command, you want to make sure you're standing in this position with him. You have his attention on you, rather than if he's focused on something else. First, get his attention, and then tell him what you want. It's going to be much more quick to listen to you when you have his attention first. So I'm going to encourage him to get up, of course. Then I'm going to turn towards him, tell him sit with the hand signal, and then go from there. Okay, Teddy, sit. Atta boy. Okay. So of course, if he does it the first time I ask, just praise him, no corrections needed. If he weren't to sit when I ask, first give him a verbal reprimand. It's an so it's just a sharp pitch to make him understand that he's done something incorrectly. A lot of times he'll fix himself with that. If he doesn't, I'll give him another 1-2 seconds after the verbal reprimand, and then you would correct with the leash and the prong collar. So the correction, when we give a correction with the leash, it's a pop and release motion. Very quick little jerk. It's not extended pressure. You just want that quick little pop, and you can repeat that until he were to sit or to do what you've asked him, and then stop the corrections and make sure you praise him. You want to get that balance. The corrections and the praise are just as important. Good boy. Okay. And then for down, a lot of times I'll have him in a sit first. It's much easier for him to go to a down from a sit. So I'll go ahead, put myself in front of him to manage his attention at that point. And then for down, it's going to be a palm towards the ground when I tell him. Down. Thank you. Okay. He's being extra affectionate this morning, so you can see I didn't repeat the command. I just went to give him the verbal reprimand. If he hadn't laid down another 1 or 2 seconds, I would have started to correct him with the leash towards the floor. About a 45-degree angle, diagonal towards the floor. Sit. Down. Good. Okay. So be patient with him. He can be a little pushy. In terms of when he doesn't want to do a command, he'll try to get away with it by licking you and then playing around a little bit. So be persistent. Leave it. Good. Thank you. Sit. Good boy. So don't let him win. He knows what each command means. You know that. So just out-persist him. Correct him when he needs to be corrected. Don't repeat your command. Again, he knows what you've said. After that, first give him an and then correct with the leash. So for down, as well as if he's jumping up on you for the off command, you want to correct down towards the ground. So think of where you want him to be and correct in that direction, towards the ground. Good boy. Try that again. Down. That's better. Okay. So I just gave him a little praise that time. No corrections were needed. Much, much better. He's realizing that playing around and not doing what I asked isn't going to get him attention or affection. But when he complies, he'll definitely get lots of praise. Okay, good boy. For the place command, so that's going to be a designated area that you want him to go on. As long as all 4 paws are on it, it's good. I usually tell him to sit or down. He's much more likely to hold it. And you want his place to be somewhere comfortable that he can go there and essentially lay there for a little bit. So when you lead him to his place, whatever you want his place to be in the house, you're going to present it to him kind of like this. As you say, place, good boy. He's expected to get all the way on. And then again, I'll go ahead and tell him to sit or down. Sit, down, stay. So as long as he's in the motion of doing it, and I'm not going to give him the verbal reprimand, that'll kind of help speed him along sometimes if he's really not making much of an effort. But he was, so I was patient with him. Don't repeat the command. You don't want him to think the command is down, down, and then he does it one time and make sure he follows through, as long as it takes him. And then for the stay command, so that's going to be a palm towards his muzzle, telling him to hold whatever position you put him in, either on place or just a sit or a down on the floor. And then it's very important that you always go back to him when you're ready to release him, praise him, and okay. He knows that one good. So you always have to go back to him before you release him with okay. If he were to get up and break the stay before you go back and release him, you want to make sure you bring him back to where he was. Place. Good boy. Put him back in the position you had him. Sit. Down. So just give a little nag towards the ground. Good. Stay. So you just want to bring him back to where you had him. Okay. You would remind him to stay and then release again and then give him some praise. You want to make sure that you do monitor him while he's in a stay, because if he were to get up and break in and you don't bring him back, he's realizing there's no consequence for breaking it, and he's much more likely to try it again. All right, for the leave a command, you saw I dropped treats on the ground, so that's going to be any time that he gets fixated on something else and you want him to return his focus back to you. When we're on a walk, if it's going to be another dog that you're going to use the leave a command with, you can correct with the e-collar. So that would be the black S button on the e-collar. As soon as you see him looking at another dog, tell him leave it. As soon as he looks back at you, gives you his attention, reward him really quickly. So you got to be ready. That's why I mentioned having a pouch is going to be really helpful, just to be able to reward him really quickly. So eventually he will want to keep focus on you rather than look at the other dog. But for the time being, while he's getting used to you being his handler and the new environment of your house and neighborhood, have some treats. Make it really rewarding for him when he looks at you rather than the other dog. So if you tell him to leave something and he's not taking his focus off of it, you would just hit the black S button. And you can just tap that until he gives you his attention, then stop the corrections with the e-collar and make sure you praise or reward him heavily. Because that's a big one, especially with dogs. That's a big trigger. So we're doing everything we can to keep him focused on us and not the other dog. Because when he is focused on us, he's very calm, he can heel nicely, and he's a good boy. It's much more enjoyable of a walk. And then for the healing, so the command we use is let's go. Leave it. Good boy. Okay. So when you give that command, nice and loud, firm, you want his attention. Good boy. Very good. So when we're healing, we're going to use the let's go command, because that initiates the walk. Now he's expected to stay pretty much this position with you. You'll decide how far you're going to let him stray, but too far in front, too far to the side, you're going to pop and release with the prong collar when he's on leash. Pop and release back towards your hip, back where you want him to be. He also responds well to the but a lot of the times, especially when you're outside on a walk, the distractions are much higher for him. So using that leash and prong collar is very helpful. It's gonna be like your power steering when you're on a walk. And then when we come to a stop, he's expected to sit next to us. If he forgets, you don't want to have to start to tell him. You want it to become an automatic thing. So just tell him, if he forgets, and then pop and release straight up. Remember, for sit, it's going to be straight up with the leash for the correction until he sits. Then tell him, good boy. And then when you're ready for him to go to the end of the leash, go potty, be out of this position, release with, okay. Now he's free to do what he wants until you're ready to keep walking, and then let's go. Now he's expected to stay with you. So I'll demonstrate. Let's go. Good boy. So nice loose leash as long as he's next to you. Good boy. I like to talk to him and keep him engaged with me. Good boy. And then we're going to come to a stop. There you go. Okay. So see that just reminds him like, hey, you forgot something, and he fixed himself. Good boy. Let's go. I'll also pat my left leg when we lead off. It's just an extra visual for him. Very good boy. You can also make quick turns. Good boy. Keep him engaged with you. Nice. You see he went out a little too far. I gave him a tiny little pop in towards me. He immediately brought his focus back to what we were doing and completed the heel. Good boy. Okay. So now he's free to do what he wants. And drop it command. You play. Sit. No. You want any of these toys on there? There's a ball under here. Well, for drop it, when you go home and have 2 equal value items to him, like 2 tennis balls or 2 plush toys, you want to throw one, let him have it in his mouth, of course. Tell him to drop it. You'll throw him the other ball. As soon as he drops the first one, you'll throw the second ball. So it's going to be like an ongoing game for him, and you're working on the dropping command at the same time. And you're teaching him that dropping a prized possession, whatever he has in his mouth, is going to get him something in return. So another toy. So it's a fun game for him. Eventually, you can swap it out for a treat. And then, of course, eventually he will drop it on command for nothing. But for right now, we want to teach him that it's really rewarding to drop something on command. So really important to practice with toys, and then it'll come in handy when you need him to drop something potentially dangerous. You gonna play with it or just roll it around? That's a good boy. It's okay. He's sometimes into toys and sometimes not. He's kind of like a cat. All right, Teddy. Good boy. And then now we're going to work on the recalls. So coming when called. We're going to start on leash just to make sure that he understands that you still have that control, especially when you go to any new place. So to your house, for example, from here, anywhere you go after that and want to take him off leash, we're always going to start on leash first. You also want to make sure that the e-collar is making good connection with him. You want to sit it up under his ear. I put it under his right ear, so the prong collar will go a little lower and then the e-collar will sit up high, right under his ear. You want to make sure it's snug enough that both of the prongs are making contact with his skin. So I kind of put it on his fur and wiggle it down to get it on his skin. And then you want it to be snug enough that it's not moving around. But of course, it's not tight enough to choke him. You're still able to fit 1 or 2 fingers underneath the strap between that and his fur. But you just want to make sure that it's making good contact, because if it's not, he's not going to get the correction. Good boy. So I just tested it out for a second. I hit the button and you can see he has a little head twitch. He looks up at me. That's his automatic response a lot of the time. So that's what you want to do before you proceed to work on the recalls. You want to make sure you're having good connection. Same thing when you go for a walk and you might see other dogs. Just don't be afraid to hit the button once or twice. Make sure he gives you some sort of reaction to it. It's like a little twitch. Right now he's on level 15. That's his number here. Again, every new environment that he goes to is going to have new distractions. So he might need a little bit of a boost to the number. A couple of options you have for that is to hit the black and the red one together. Black and the red S, they're right here next to each other. It automatically boosts the number by 5, so it would go from 15 to 20. There's also the dial up here, of course, and that'll move the number all the way up to the maximum of 100. Teddy's never been higher than about a 20. He responds very well to the e-collar and at a fairly low level. So, but again, don't be afraid to turn it up a little. If you go home at 15, just seems like it's not strong enough for him. It's nothing bad, very normal. 15 is just your rough estimate. We'll start at that, and then if you need to turn it higher to get a reaction from him, do so. So when we're working on the recalls, we're always going to use his name first. So it's always going to be Teddy, come, with an outstretched arm in towards your body. And the recall is only finished when he comes and sits right in front of you. That's when the recall ends, and then you would reward him and release him. We are definitely going to use treats for this still because it's such an important command, and you really just want to heavily reinforce it with him. So again, we're going to start on leash, but you're still going to correct with the e-collar. Check what number you're at. Make sure you're still at what you want to be, 15. And I'm going to call him nice and loud, animated. Teddy, come. Very good boy. Very good boy. Okay. And then I like to encourage him all the way to me. Keep him engaged with you the whole time. You don't want him to start coming to you, and then get distracted by something else along the way. The recall starts when you call him, and again, it doesn't end until he's all the way to you and sitting. So nice and loud, animated. He definitely has a prey drive, so big, quick movements are gonna get his attention. And like funny noises, I use a or a, like a kissing noise. It's a little high-pitched stuff like that is really gonna get him pumped up and excited to come to you. That is the main goal. So I'll do another one on leash, and then we'll take him off. Teddy, come. Yes, good boy. Okay. So, I have not used the e-collar. He's been coming every time. So now he knows that the leash is off, and I don't have that extra little tether. So now it's all about the e-collar. Essentially, when you're home, if you have a long line, like a 10 or 15-foot leash, Teddy, that would be ideal to work up. Start on your 6-foot leash, your regular leash, and then go up to a longer leash, giving him more distance in between you, but you still have that lifeline. You're able to reel him in if you need to before you go to completely off leash. We're skipping that step, but it's definitely recommended at home. Teddy, come. Good boy. He was over by the chickens. That was a big distraction. Good boy. Okay. I still didn't correct him. I will let you know if I do, but just nice and loud, and that encouraging him will normally result in using this less because you're making him excited to come to you. He's not doing it because he has to. Teddy, come. Good boy. So nice and loud. Don't be afraid to be a little silly. Okay, because he likes that. He likes when you're big and you're loud and making a big deal of it. You want to be his new fun toy, especially when you're outside and again competing with lots and lots of distractions. Teddy, come. Good boy. Okay, so I'll bring my hand signal up and into me to encourage that sit from him. Just like with the heeling, you want it to be automatic, so we don't want to have to tell him. We're just encouraging it. So if he comes up to you and forgets to sit, remember that and then you can correct with the e-collar if he forgets to sit. Teddy, come. Good boy. Very good. Okay. You're not making any mistakes. Great game to play in the house with 1 or 2 people or more than that. More than one person. It's going to take at least 2 people. You would stand in the same room to start with, about 6 feet apart to start. Have some treats, call him back and forth. And once he gets good at that, start to spread out a little bit. Eventually you go to different rooms of the house. It becomes like hide and seek for him. And it's a really good game to tire him out mentally as well as physically, and you're working on the recalls all at the same time. So that mental stimulation is going to tire him out, sometimes even more than running around in the backyard. Because he was born to run, but he's not always, using his brain like he would if he was hurting. So that's why we try to give him games like that. You can throw his kibble out in the grass outside and have him search for it. We were playing with the flirt pole a week ago. He really liked that. Just give him something to do, an outlet for that energy that he has, and it'll help him to be much calmer when you take him inside and expect him to calm down. Teddy, come. What a good boy. What a good boy. Okay. Good job, buddy. Good job.